So as a quick review, remember you're going to be coming in your manifold valve or header valve, green header, closing the manifold, crossover, red-green crossover, closed. Cargo comes up here, bumps into that valve over there, which is your green above deck block valve, forcing the cargo to go down through this valve, which is your drop valve, your green drop valve. As the cargo now comes down the green drop valve, you can see it goes into your lower cargo main. Where is it? Right down through here somewhere. And the next valve it bumps into is this valve here. Maybe if you can scoot into this next tank here. You can see here's the cargo main here, and there's a below deck green block valve. It's controlled here, but the valve is down there. By opening this valve, it allows now the cargo to come down your drop and go further aft. By keeping this valve closed, if I wanted to isolate the rest of the system back there, I could close this valve, but it would still allow me to open up these tanks up into number ones to let number ones fill up independent of the rest of the green tanks. So drop valve, and by the way, you know, these valves are going to be used for loading and for discharging, so what do we call them? We're going to keep this very, very simple. If I tell you to open up one port, one starboard, or one center, it's this valve. If you're loading or discharge, it doesn't matter. I'm going to call it the same thing because it does two things. It all depends on which way the cargo's flowing. So this would be your number one center valve, your number one port valve, your number one starboard valve. And the smaller ones have to give it an extra little name because it's a separate little system. This is the stripping valve. So this would be number one starboard stripper, number one center stripper, number one port stripper. And that little stripping valve has its own little pump, and we're going to use it to pump out the last bits in the cargo tank. Right? It's called the stripping line. And again, every cargo tank has a main and it has a stripping valve. So I want you to recognize this. You're going to be drawing this system out, so recognize what's the same with every tank and which one's a little bit odd. Where are the oddballs? For example, we said that this is a green below deck block. Well, if there's one in the green system, would it make sense that there would be one in the red system? There it is. Well, if it's good for the green and the red system, is there one in the yellow system? And the answer to that is no. And the reason for that is because all the yellow systems are aft anyway. All right, so we don't have a below deck yellow block valve. And that's what I want you to recognize as you're drawing this out. What's the same? It's going to be easier if you recognize what's the same and then isolate in your mind and in your drawing what's different and why is it different. Okay, so here we are. I open up the below deck green block valve. It goes down in through here. You can see it's kind of coming through here, going through the bulkhead, and now it's entering into 3 center. Now here's something that's odd. Here's something that's odd. You see this valve here? Crossover valve, and we have a crossover valve. Do you see that any place else out on deck? Kind of sweep it a little bit. Do you see any other below deck crossover valves like this? That's unique because as you follow your pipeline down into 3 center, you have to go through this crossover valve, keep this crossover valve closed to be able to allow the cargo to get to your 3 center valve. Well, that's unique. That's unique to the system, and there's a reason for it. What it's saying, what this is allowing you to do, again, remember versatility versus complexity. This makes the system more complex, but it gives you versatility. So for example, I can fill up this tank, 3 center, with what's coming into the green system or with what's coming into the red system. I chose this for a reason. In other words, I can have one extra red tank and one less green tank in the system, and it's 3 center. And the reason we chose that was 3 has the least amount of cut it for a minute.